So object of the presentation today is what is called virtual power plant, which is a key development in the renewable energy sector to achieve a very important function, that of allowing the grid to withstand different sources of electricity coming from renewables, and managing also the fact that more and more companies are now both producers and consumers of electricity, so they become prosumers. So the virtual power plant is, in essence, an issue of digital twin, where you're virtualizing, in effect, power plants. I will go through this presentation as quickly as possible, and I will leave time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And please feel free to ask anything that is needed. Some context here on the lay of the land. The first item on the agenda is interoperability. With the advent of 5G and way more powerful computers on the edge, we're now able to run intense machine learning, artificial intelligence algorithms at the site in real time, quasi real time, in the control of the different devices. And that is enabling the ability for a number of objects to acquire more and more intelligence. You know that the 6 million of Tesla cars around the street are controlled 24/7 by the company, who is capable of figuring out the behavior of each and every single driver of those cars. And the examples are endless. But it's important to notice here how the physical space and the information flow interact with one another to kind of make up this, if you like, ecosystem. Of course, on my end, which is where I'll focus later, the energy system, so the smart grid, again, is characterized now by fewer real power plants, more and more renewables that are coming to the grid. And again, from housing to office spaces, factories and stuff, a number of buildings are now capable of producing energy and using it for self-consumption and putting it in the grid. From a technical perspective, I would like to underline the importance of not just the computing power, but the deterministic routers that are coming to the market that are enabling the expansion of real-time communication way outside of the usual historic physical boundaries that we had in the past, and achieve real-time communication also over large type of areas. This is pretty important. Second item, just about the lay of the land. Again, not to forget about reliability. You know only too well, we have to control all these objects in a way that is synchronized, that is predictable, and that is safe. This can go from cars going through a body-in-white welding operation, through any other type of objects and manufacturing process, distribution process, or again, energy creating and distributing processes. So what really counts here at the very small scale is our ability to control the packets of data that go from A to B in the correct sequence, so as to ensure, again, synchronization and reliable transmission and usage of the data packets that we need. And this is super important. And with the latest technology, we can certainly do that. And last but not least, in terms of lay of the land, how does this deterministic networking and real-time virtualized computing come into play? Well, you have on the edge the ability to pull all those virtual machines together, some dedicated to safety, some to motion and control, some to sensors, some to more computing power, and interact with the physical objects out there. It can be robots, it can be cars, trucks, trains, it can be generators, it can be solar panels, it can be anything that you like. The ability to introduce higher level control and some machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so forth at the edge is paramount, because as we increase the number of, again, intelligent objects, or we increase the intelligence of all objects out there, we could not possibly rely on something in the cloud to just manage that. And so this scheme here that we discussed again in October at the IEEE conference in Lisbon, Portugal, comes round and round again, because it's something where a bunch of companies are and academic institutions are working. Ultimately, the ability to achieve mission critical hypervisors, so these virtual machines that can combine all these capabilities on the edge in real time there. So that goes for the context from a technology perspective. It's important then to put some definitions in place. What is a power plant? There you see a nice definition. Of course, it's a computer based. It's a virtual thing, but the crucial aspect is that it enables you to aggregate different devices, different what we call distributed energy resources. So it enables you to virtualize and then aggregate solar panels, CHPs, HVACs, all sorts of objects, inverters, generators, so that you can represent their power load and demand and output, and pull it together so that you can respond not just to the needs of the specific site where you're at, be it a factory, a distribution center, a university campus, or just a residential building, but rather see that in the context of all that is around in the smart grid, and then use those margins of safety that you have in each of the single sites to bring them together, and then help the grid manage the overall load, and in essence, decrease the need to consume energy, because you're making a much more efficient usage of energy. In the example that you see top right, electric buses, they can store lots of energy, of course, and even more so the school buses, of which we have a gazillion, because you need to have lots of school buses, because they all go out at the same time in the morning, and they all come back at the same exact time in the afternoon. So you have normally large fleets of school buses that for the majority of the day can remain attached to the grid. And now you have megs of energy storage available to allow you to aggregate with other assets, of course, and enable the grid to optimize the consumption based on the demand that is coming in real time. Our solutions are called real time when we instruct our batteries, our devices to either load or discharge energy over cycles of a minute. The cycle is repeated every 15 minutes, every hour, every 24 hours. So we're capable, not just us, our competitors too, to basically alleviate all the spikes, all the conditions that affect the grid in real time, so that we allow the utility not to spike up the production of energy, especially if it comes from fossil fuel, but rather rely on aggregating all the parts coming together. When you see that word, lot demand response, that is the ability to reduce the aggregate demand at the request of the grid. And this is one very good case for VPP. Some of you may have seen in the news, Tesla started back last September with some 2,000 drivers in San Francisco that basically allows the cars to participate in this VPP. These 2,000 Tesla cars were able to, again, be aggregated through a VPP, and Tesla helped the Californian utility with megs and megs of energy at a moment where the Californian grid was under duress. The drivers got $2 per kilowatt. Okay, they probably bought themselves a Starbucks or something, and not that they became rich, but A, they had the satisfaction of doing something for the environment, and B, they made some money, and C, we proved these concepts here that we're talking about, the ability to aggregate different devices to, in essence, work for our environment and reduce the consumption that we have in the grid. With these type of things, we have different factors at play. Of course, there are uncertainties around the business models at play, the rules of the game, so the regulatory landscape, and a technology that is very much evolving as we speak. Because we need to pull together ingredients and the 5G and the computing power and the different models of machine learning that need to be coordinated to do this. Here, the role of the utility, the federal agencies, even world organizations is pretty important, because it's a new field. There is, of course, a big push to save the environment, fight the climate change, but that is also enabling different countries, different states, different regions to come up with different market rules all the time. And you know better than I do that the moment you change the rules of the game, somebody writing software needs to move fast to keep their application in line with rules and regulations. What is happening now is that different states are in competition between themselves. We see today the ERCOT market in Texas being very, very active, Ontario in Canada, to some extent California, to some extent Massachusetts, but certainly Texas is pretty active in coming up with all sorts of new markets, new rules that the different providers can play with to A, achieve an economic return, B, obtain that saving that I mentioned before. So that means that the nature of the VPP is pretty much a systemic nature. It's not just one technology, one bit here and there. It's our ability to design, understand the entire system, the variables at play, and then go from there. So in balancing uncertainty with opportunities, of course, we as Anel see that as one of our competitive advantages. Like I said before, electric vehicles, batteries, solar behind, in front of the meter, the electrification of the buildings, they're all growing very, very rapidly. And that means that we also work a lot on simulating future scenarios. We use Monte Carlo simulation to develop scenarios over the medium to long range term, talking 15 to 25 years, where we're trying to imagine to create equally likely scenarios and imagine how the different devices, the different technologies that we have today can be pulled together to achieve this lower impact on our climate, and also making money for our customers and stakeholders. If you think of just the, somebody asking a question? Gada, you asking a question?
I think it was just on.
Yeah, just a mic. Okay. What was it? Okay. So what I'm saying is, imagining the future over the 15, 20, 25 years horizon is also important as we push the development of this and that, the other technology. When you think of just the EV vehicle expansion, you see that already today we're seeing a drop in the acceleration of pickup of EVs here in the States. They're way in front in Europe, much more in front in China. We're a tad behind, but in all three places, you see that the grid struggles to keep up with the growth in load that you have from using EVs for personal drive, buses, trains, and so forth. So electrification really is something that is a systemic type of feature, and that can only work if you're able to put intelligence on all possible devices that can be electrified and aggregate them together to optimize the usage. That is the goal of VPP. So we talk about mixed asset because, again, we're aggregating different type of assets, even CHPs, generators, and the likes. And that is why we do it and what we do it. You would think that this is of little usage, but I can assure you that when you're dealing with actually thousands of people working on the development of these systems, it's really important to create a shared vision of the reasons and objectives that you're working towards, so that you establish some principles that can be shared with all the teams that are working on the hardware devices, the edge devices on the hardware side, the firmware engineers, the control engineers, the system engineers, the software engineers, and then the data scientists that work on the predictive forecasting, stochastic forecasting, and optimization models. It's really important to create a vision, share a vision for all to participate in. In more pragmatic terms, this means that today You have a bunch of distributed energy resources you see at the bottom of the page, and you have the availability of different value streams on top. And again, like I said before, the regulatory market, so the different utilities work a lot to create more and more value streams to incentivize the usage and the exploitation of the different devices. You know that the big issue with renewables is that, especially wind, they're not constant throughout the day, or solar. Some others, like geothermal or hydroelectric, are more constant, more reliable, but still they are nowhere near the reliability of, for instance, nuclear power plant or something. For instance, in the state of Arizona, with APS, Arizona Power Service, they're dealing with, they're running a pretty important nuclear plant, and they bought 850 meg of batteries so that they can store the energy produced by the nuclear plant during the day, where solar is actually at negative price, and discharge at night when solar and wind are no longer that much available, and the prices would be different. So you're seeing there the importance of storage technology out there for all sorts of purposes, front of the meter, behind the meter. Storage technology today is proven and has achieved great reduction in costs over the years, still primarily lithium-ion based, but there is lots of effort in sodium, so salt-based batteries, flow batteries that may have lesser density compared to lithium-ion, but they can last longer, and they cost much less. So again, probably lithium will be in EVs for a little while longer, but fixed-based storage technology is changing to other chemistries and other chemistries for those goals. That means that for you guys in the software engineering type of work, aspects that you may have not thought about until now is the ability to create digital twins of the different types of batteries or the different types of DRs, which means not only simulating the input and output of electricity, but actually simulating how the different chemistries work, and from there understand if a battery will lose efficiency over the years depending on how it's used, and model that so that when you're creating your business case for 15, 25 years, you can bet and you can sign up to performance agreements with your customer so that you're safely you're safe in your assumption that that battery will behave in a certain way for that long. Those are all simulations based not only, again, on the mathematics of the energy flow, but also on the chemistry and physics of the battery themselves. That's why we're also seeing an uptick in multi-physics simulations coming to the field, because again, you have to really understand the system at large to model how that is going to behave over the medium to long term. So super important, this one here. In our case, we're focusing different lines of business on different types of devices and flows. So Enel is really active, of course, with all our solar and windmill plants. We have 37 gig of power here in the States. Those are large fields. Solar panel fields range in the 5 to 800 meg of solar panels. Wind can be a little bit more than that. And of course, that is all safe. That is when you're putting out 700 meg, of course, your utility scale. With commercial and industrial operations, let's say you have Ford as the factory where they made the F-150. That factory consumes lots of electricity, but that factory is not consuming the same load 24/7, 365 days of the year. So Ford at that plant can tell me, look, at this time of the day and these days of the week, we plan to have this much of a consumption, this other much, and I can go in and put that extra capacity up for grabs on the market, so that Ford makes money and the utility don't need to scale up the production of energy, especially through the burning of fossil fuel. In the case of the behind the meter panels and storage, of course, we also have flows with facility peak management, system peak management. So evening out the curves of load and consumption so that the customer has a lesser load on the grid and can also make money from that. And finally, last but not least, there is the issue of energy arbitrage, when, again, you can pull together all those EVs, buses, and stuff. And like I said before, in the example of Tesla, participate in demand response events and make money for you and the customer. The complexity of all these different technologies and ingredients coming together, it gets pretty interesting, especially because, like I said in the beginning, the utilities like to optimize, change the rules, and create new revenue stream, new type of contracts. So from your perspective, you need to think in terms of a technology that need to last, again, 25 years, and need to have the built-in flexibility to adapt to use cases that today do not exist. This is important. In the past, we would be thinking of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 use cases, develop an application, go with that, and then try and build the application in a way that other use cases could be reconfigured or built in without too much of a pain. Now, in this scenario, we're actually seeing the addition of new rules, new use cases, at least on a weekly basis, over hardware that needs to work for so many years. So from a design intent perspective, this poses a beautiful architectural problem. Again, talking about Tesla, if you think of it, they're working like I'm working on my devices to make sure that most possible stuff can be done from remote over the air through injection of firmware and software. And I think that is going to be a trend that picks up even more pace going forward, because you cannot enclose the design intent in a physical object that is supposed to work for those many years. So you need to enable software to do as much as possible. And eventually, again, like I said in the beginning, add as much intelligence as possible to the objects, the things that you use. From a market perspective, if you're thinking of what am I going to do when I graduate and get out of here and stuff, the renewable energy and generally clean tech work is picking up pace quite well. In this very moment, I would not advise anyone today to join a biotech, farm tech type of startup, because throughout the country, we're seeing big reduction in investments, stuff, and everything. There is no appetite for much risk given the current interest rates and so forth. But clean tech is actually one area of continued growth. There is some argument that would say that we're actually facing kind of a glut. I can argue that with the price of lithium-ion batteries being discounted 22% in the last few months, the market is extremely active. And then there's also geopolitical issues with all the sanctions and all the incentives that all the different countries in the world put out there. Of course, you have market in China that on electrification is doing great things, and is now in need to export as much as possible of their EVs and of their battery technology, because they're actually overproducing. They're not keeping up with their own demand. But then that calls into the issue of geopolitical sanctions and stuff, and it makes all things more complicated. In fact, here in the States, we have a bunch of companies that are opening up factories to build solar panels, to build batteries, to build more and more of those objects that we saw before, e-buses, EV cars, to participate in this. So quite an interesting market from perspective of growth in the short term. This is just a sample of just recent announcements. There is one after the other. So I mean, yeah, the market is right with that. And one thing for just for your information to look at competitors. Here you see some are more active on the load, CHP, PV, but those are some of the names that appear in this thing. And my favorite and last slide of all, before we open up with all sorts of questions, I will actually leave it here maybe. This is how I picture it from an architectural perspective. So on the lower end edge side, you have the need to control and optimize the management of the physical object, be it the storage, be it residential, be it in the generation. You have to bring that asset to fruition with others. So you need to be able to aggregate. After you optimize your asset, you need to be able to aggregate and then start trading, start optimizing the bids that you can do on the market. And then at that asset, you aggregate even further throughout the smart grid, throughout the grid. And of course, the more you aggregate, the better you are in a position to benefit the market at large. All these things happen through APIs. Like I said before, this is based pretty much on real time, because electricity is real time by design. So you have to connect the different stacks of the system, the different microservices involved through APIs, so that you can not just build your own solution for your own company and for your own asset, but you're actually able to open it up to other companies, to other assets, and to get it together at grid level. Okay. I can stop share. I mean, you've seen it. Okay. Let's go for all sorts of questions.